This is Space Cat's Peace Turtles, the unofficial podcast for Fantasy Flight's Twilight Imperium, episode 26, Kingmaking and Support for the Throne. Music by Ben Prunty, featuring Matt Martins and Hunter Donaldson. Hello and welcome to another episode of Space Cat's Peace Turtles. I'm Matt Martins. You don't like that? You don't like it just diving in? Why? What do you want to do, Hunter?
I don't necessarily want to do anything. I just want you to take two. You know, I just want a better. You kind of came in. You know, it was like I felt like the way you did that was like we worked together, and you were like the guy who worked in the cubicle next to me, and you kind of leaned over on your thing, and you were like, "Hey man, what's up? What's going on with you?" And your confidence wasn't enough to make me look up from my desk in my work. You know, like I'm busy and I'm looking at the reports and we're not doing too well this quarter, you know? And, you know, boss isn't happy with me. Boss isn't happy with anybody at this point, you know? And their marriage is crumbling. Boss. Yeah, their marriage is crumbling. And, you know, and then you lean over with your big stupid face and you're like, what's up? You doing anything this weekend? And it's like,
play this board game. You want to join me?
Right. You're trying to get me to play some long 6-hour board game. And you know what I want to do? Crack open a few brews, you know, hang out on the beach, listen to Jimmy Buffett. Welcome to Space Cat's Peace Turtles. This is Hunter Donaldson's podcast featuring a few of his friends. It's about my favorite board game in the world, Twilight Imperium. And it's about sitting on the beach, cracking open a few brews, enjoying some time with your friends and your buddies.
That was beautiful, Hunter. That was a beautiful sentiment. We are joined today, the only other time we've had a true guest on this show was the designer of Twilight Imperium, and today's guest is our friend Alex. Hey, Alex, introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Alex.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a great follow-up.
That's a good
great
guess.
Follow-up to Dane, the lead designer of the board game. I am one person who plays the board game.
Right, and you've played it with us. You guys might recognize Alex's voice. He was in our People Who Play Twilight Imperium episode.
Ages ago, before we were even famous.
Right, and so we have
on your coattails.
Yes. We have a difficult task today. Basically, last week, Hunter and I tried to cover a lot of topics, and one of the topics turned out to be quite the hotbed issue, quite the difficult one to unpack, and that is kingmaking, and even more specifically, the role of the support for the throne promissory note. Mm-hmm. And we decided we need to just have a roundtable discussion about these topics.
I want to say here at the top, we do not agree on it. I feel like
I don't even know what my opinions fully are. That's why I feel like I just want to talk it out. And so today is going to be a very, very different episode for Space Cat's Peace Turtles. We brought Alex on because, if anything, we just need a third party so that when Hunter and I cannot come to an agreement on anything, Alex, it becomes your job to agree with one of us. Now, I feel like I planned this really great because typically Alex agrees with me on topics of Twilight Imperium.
That is literally what I was about to say. I was literally about to say this is the episode where me and Alex team up against Matt, and he king makes me in the episode, in the argument.
I'm the kingmaker.
Yes. Yeah, we brought you on to kingmake in this argument about kingmaking.
So I want to pull basically a bunch of things that have been said throughout the past week on the Twilight Imperium subreddit and Board Game Geek, partially in our own posts, but then there's also been some other posts that were made throughout the week on this topic. Mm-hmm. And so lots of things were brought up in these discussions, and I just want to use all those things as jumping off points for us to talk about these crazy topics. So the very first thing is, let's go ahead and for the beginners out there, let's establish what the support for the throne promissory note is and does, because that's going to be crucial to the rest of this conversation.
Yeah, let's teach you babies.
I think we should also give a rudimentary definition of what exactly kingmaking is.
Ooh,
yeah, yes. I agree. But I think that's going to be something. I think that might be part of the.
I think we will start arguing at that point.
Yes, exactly.
Because it's funny that you bring that up, because that is trying to define it was what me and Matt got stuck on.
Yes.
Because Matt thinks certain things are king-making that I'm like, that's not king-making.
Right. So I think part of, if anything, part of this episode's goal is to find that definition of king-making.
Right.
So, Hunter, give us support for the throne.
Okay, fine, I'll do it. It reads, it's a promissory note, one of the standard regular style promissory notes, and it reads like this. When you receive this card, if you are not the blank player, fill in with whatever color, you got this, you can do it. You must place it face up in your play area and gain 1 victory point. If you activate a system that contains one or more of the so-called player's units, or if the so-called player is eliminated, lose 1 victory point and return this card to the so-called player.
That's very good. You did that very neutralized. I like that. Yeah. The whole gist is you can give someone a victory point, and it makes it to where if they want to keep that victory point, they do not get to attack you. They don't get to target your stuff. It's as hard
an alliance you get.
Yeah, it's about a ceasefire is a similar sort of alliance if both of you trade ceasefires. But I feel like there's the first thing I want to talk about today is the idea of trading a support for the throne for someone else's support for the throne. Because support for the throne by itself, as a promissory note, I actually don't have any problems with. Trading you a support for the throne for you to not do something else, or like in exchange for trade goods that I need for a victory point or whatever, that's fine. That's just a normal promissory note.
That's just Twilight Imperium.
Exactly,
buddy.
That's just Twilight Imperium. But when 2 people trade, and really you could extend this for me to all the promissory notes. 2 people trading trade agreements is very weird, right? Like if you and I both have 4 commodities and we trade agreements, what are we even doing? That's a very weird proposition, and you don't see it very often.
It is a weird play.
Yeah, same thing with political secret. 2 people giving each other the chance to cancel each other's votes out.
That's cuter. It's
cuter, but it's even less done. Support for the throne is done all the time. Ceasefire for ceasefire is done all of the time. So I guess the first question is, why, and have any of you guys ever actually proposed this or had it proposed towards you, and what was your response? Alex?
I've never traded a support for the throne for a support for the throne. I've traded mine in order to get what I considered a particularly juicy deal, because it's a support for the throne early in the game is basically nothing.
Yeah, it's like a nebulous whatever. If anything, I love support for the throne in that I used it in a recent game where I gave my support for the throne to Jolnar with the express intent of then immediately getting in their way.
What did you do?
I gummed up Jolnar's works. Is that what you're trying to bait me into saying?
Oh, is that what you did?
I gummed up their works.
Oh, you had all that gum and I
got right in their works. Yeah. Because when...
All right, you can, if you guys are playing the Space Cats Peace Turtles drinking game, please drink.
Take one. Hunter, what about you? Support for the thrones.
I hate trading support for the throne, and the only time I have ever proposed it, I actually failed. I don't know if you can read that about me, but it seems like a lot of times lately when I propose anything to do with support for the throne, people are just kind of cautious and upset, even though I'm somebody that has won several games now not by essentially getting a support for the throne, but I got a support for the throne as my first victory point and then went on to win the game.
Right.
It was not a support for the throne for support for the throne. But let me say this, the only time I've ever proposed it is if 2 other players did it.
Right.
Is to kind
even
of
the odds.
To try and neutralize the entire thing.
Sure,
yeah.
I think that's fair.
I don't
I have one thing that I want to say about it. I don't know that I really care that much about it.
What do you mean?
Well, I feel like around this whole discussion of king-making, there's one thing that needs to be clear, that only one person is going to win the game.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, it's not the best thing to do, but only one of those people is going to win. And if they're good players, I don't think that that support for the throne will be in play by the end of the game.
Yeah, that's usually my thought in general. Like, if it's something that happens within the first 3 rounds, I think I'm generally not going to even care that much, because it's just like, there's no way that could continue to the end, right? I mean, that's usually my thought. Some players definitely try to uphold their
it's
bargains.
only one player you have to avoid activating.
Right, exactly.
And if they're not playing to make you do
that's
it,
true.
Then that's not, I don't like the round table trade to like where everybody's trading support for the thrones, mostly because I just feel like it kind of bores me because it's like, okay, so we're just gonna make this game shorter voluntarily. We're just gonna take some of the.
It's gonna play nice to each other.
That's why I like it as incentive for other things. There was a recent post by Dan Heck on Board Game Geek that talked about how it is almost like you get to establish new victory points. I'll give you my victory point for you doing this task instead for me. I'm going to go outside of the bounds of the public objectives and secret objectives, and instead I'm saying you get a point if you make Papa happy.
I love that, but I haven't seen a whole lot of that.
No, I don't see enough of that, and I just see people wanting to trade. I think it's because we're so used to trade goods for trade goods, and so everyone just thinks, oh, I'll just swap this thing too. Mm-hmm. But it's like, no, to me it should be used as a replacement for a objective that maybe you can't get.
Yeah. Right. I had a good use of support for the throne, a good little point in our game. Basically, this last game I played, I was playing with a couple new people, and I needed one of them to get out of my way so that I could claim a point, and I didn't want to attack them. So I offered them my support for the throne, and then another player offered them their support for the throne, and it just kind of forced them to choose between us and make an alliance for the victory point.
Right. I guess here's my other thought too then, because you bring up making alliances. Maybe I'm alone in this, and Hunter, you've called me out on this before, because I basically have no honor.
No backbone.
I have no backbone. Well, no, it's that. Yeah, I mean, I don't see the value because, like Alex said earlier, there's only one winner, right? We all know that there's only one winner. So I look at every alliance as obviously it has to fall apart at some point. So I'm just very, very willing to pull that trigger whenever it best suits me, because it's like, in my mind, everybody should recognize that none of these alliances are real. And even if you trade support for the throne for a support for the throne, it's not an alliance. Like, this game doesn't have true alliances. So it always kind of boggles my mind when people talk about they wanted to establish a strong alliance, but it's like, that alliance was never going to last anyways. Like, I can have the same kind of alliance without trading support for the throne for a support for the throne, at least in my mind.
I hear you. I feel like, though, the meta overall, this is kind of just becomes a player thing about you.
Yeah.
It makes it very difficult to negotiate with you because I know no matter what, anything I say to you is public information. Anything that we do, like, it makes your overall presence, I think, kind of flimsy when it comes to the meta. Right. And that's fine depending on what race you're playing. But if you're playing a race that really needs a buddy, like we've kind of talked about that a couple times now on the podcast, and we will continue to talk about it and some of
especially coming up.
Some of the coming strategy guide episodes. When you need a buddy, it's very hard to want to be your buddy, basically, because it doesn't feel like, okay, I can't just like depend on Matt to hold up his end of the deal, basically. Yeah. And when you don't need that, like when you're playing Joel Nar, and I mean, you don't need...
Doesn't matter. You don't need a buddy.
You don't need a buddy.
Right.
You've got tech objectives in your back pocket.
Yeah.
That's fine. But if you're playing like Ghost of Creus, kind of something that we ran into recently.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, Matt?
Right. Well...
I have to disagree. I think that only one person is going to win, but I do think that alliances are very real, and they shape the flow of the game so much. Like they can completely turn who wins.
Right. Well, okay.
And,
but there's generally going to be somebody who gets the better end of an alliance.
Exactly.
Basically.
Which is why I, as a third party, am always upset to see alliances, because I'm just always looking for, well, I'm waiting to see when one person really comes out with the advantage of that alliance. Because one person, they both think they're going to come out with the advantage, and I'm just waiting for one of them to be wrong. And in my mind, it's always like, I wish neither of you had done that alliance in the first place. And I wish you had found a way to exist angry with each other rather than pretend that you were peaceful.
You should see how he's looking at me right now, because he's just seen me get the better end of the deal
many times. But and I mean, genuinely, it's the same problem I have. We talked about this last week, and there were some people that disagreed. Like the idea of, ooh, let's trade secret objectives for secret objectives. Like let me accomplish mine, and I'll let you accomplish yours. All that does is put the other four players down a peg, but it doesn't necessarily put you up enough. I get that it puts you up a peg, and that's like the whole benefit of trading a support for the throne for a support for the throne.
My problem with trading secret objectives, as it's called, is that those are intended to remain secret,
right.
And I'm not a big fan of people like nudging each other in the ribs and saying, "Oh, I can't tell you what it is, but all I'm saying is I need to be next to your home system or whatever. Like I need to build a few more dreadnoughts."
We used to have a lot of problems with that. I mean, I remember many games with you and like Connor and everybody where that was just happening constantly, and like half the board would be fuming because these two players were just trading objectives left and right.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that I feel like is just not in the flavor of the game.
Yeah, not in the spirit of the game.
But it's so interesting because at the same time it is, like you guys both just said, like establishing these comfortable relationships with other players is a crucial part of the game, right? And so one of the arguments we keep seeing in this discussion is the idea of, this is more related to Kingmaking than it is support for the throne, but when you decide to make a king, you pick the player who didn't screw you over. So essentially just saying your actions in the game, outside of their strategic impact, their emotional impact can come back to haunt you. And so in that way, support for the throne, if you established a comfortable support for the throne relationship with someone, that might be someone who continues to support your race for the throne. You know what I mean? Like it's just this weird thing of like, if you did have that comfortable alliance all game and they fall out of the running and you are tied neck and neck waiting for the lead, waiting for the win to happen, that person might have your back. And I'm curious.
Oh, I mean, what about this? If you had traded this person a support for the throne and they're about to win, just do whatever you can to make them attack you and lose that point.
Right. Let's start getting into Kingmaking, because I think the rest of this conversation really starts to... I think we've broken down like how we feel about support for the throne, and the rest of the conversation has to revolve around support for the throne's role in Kingmaking, because that's the bigger conversation here. So first off, how about we do this? Alex, what's your definition of Kingmaking?
So Kingmaking is specifically a very, very late game move. I would argue that mostly, if not all of it, occurs during the last status phase, and it's
or during
power
the last
play.
round in general, maybe the last like full.
As
people are sussing out who the victor is going to.
Yeah,
be.
as you have that talk where you're like, okay, so this is how it's all going to play out, and you're not even really playing anymore. You're just kind of looking at.
There's a difference between Kingmaking and late game play in general,
right?
Where you're preventing. So in late game play, you're preventing someone from winning, because if they don't win, you still have a chance to win.
Right.
When you Kingmake, you are disregarding your attempt at winning at all. You realize you can't win. So you make a power play so that you feel good about yourself, so that you can have a tiny victory and not win the game.
You had an impact.
I love your disdain for it and how you define it.
No, yeah, I think that what I consider Kingmaking, I think is pretty disrespectful to the table.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's funny is Jada Pake made a post about this on the Twilight Imperium subreddit, a philosophical treatise on Kingmaking, if you're looking for it on the subreddit. And the top comment with 14 upvotes on what someone should do, like what would you do? Here's the question. Let's say you're playing Twilight Imperium 4th edition at a tournament with 5 strangers you will never see again. You can't win, but you can decide who advances to the championship round. What criteria do you use to make the king? Spoiler, doing nothing still makes one person the winner. What do you do? The number one comment from Internuthead is, try to weaken the one who puts me in that position, or the one who is the most insufferable. I'm somewhat vindictive. And at least 13 people agree with them.
Wow.
And then the next comment is, I think it comes down to who deserves to win. And then the next top comment is, I would do whatever gives me the most points. So
still playing for yourself,
the third,
even though you can't win.
Yeah, the third furthest down is the and that's from Topaz Dragon, regular contributor. They're the first person to say, I'm still playing for myself. But the other two people are saying, it's whoever wronged me is who I'm going to hurt.
Okay, well, I want to go last weighing in on this, because I disagree with something kind of fundamental with it. So what do you, Matt, personally feel about this?
Yeah, so I can't say I have like a firm definition yet. I am looking to kind of find that in this, but I think when we were talking about it the other day, the case I was trying to make is kingmaking is actions you take at any time throughout the game that specifically help another player outside yourself. And so my point to this was to say not all kingmaking is bad. Now, this is an incredibly hard thing to define, and I'm like already in muddy water, right? Because it's like now we're talking about a million different types of interactions and having to determine whether that is good or bad kingmaking. But the idea I had on my mind originally was just that, like, if I, you know how sometimes you give someone some trade goods for a favor, it's to me almost any non-binding deal is in a way kingmaking, because if that deal doesn't get met up on the other side, that means you gave something for nothing, and to me that's kingmaking, giving something for nothing. Yeah, even if you have, I know there's like, well, there's intent and there's like what you assume will happen and there's perceptions. So I agree that is like, it isn't, that's not a complete definition, especially if you are trying to define something. It's not the right way to go, but that's where I was coming from the other day.
Let's stay with Jada's like mind puzzle here.
Yeah.
Let's just put you there, Matt.
What's my answer to that question?
What is your answer to this? What do you do?
What is my criteria to make?
Who's moving on to the championship?
Well, here's the interesting point, and I guess this is why I have trouble coming up with a definition, because even within Jada Pake's own question, he says this: what criteria do you use to make the king? The assumption is no matter what you do, you are making a king. Yeah. Again, if you do nothing, someone will become king. So the assumption is any action you can possibly take turns someone into the winner. And so, yeah, I don't see how you can do anything and not call it kingmaking in that instance, right? And so I just feel like I can apply that same logic to many instances earlier in the game, because I can backtrack things that people have done and say, when you did that, in effect, that was kingmaking. It just, we didn't see the effect of it until 2 rounds later.
So you're taking intent out, though. Even things you do without the intention of kingmaking is kingmaking. Okay. And in that way, that's just the whole game, basically.
I think then my problem there is
it's politics.
The intent of support for the throne for a support for the throne, that's where I have trouble defining that, is because I don't see that intent as anything besides like existing this nebula meta, like impossible to define zone. Like when you are establishing a support for the throne for a support for the throne trade with someone, again, we already determined like that's not really an alliance. It's not, because it cannot last. You are both intending on breaking that, but you have lifted someone up towards achieving victory closer for themselves.
Okay, well, Alex, let's get to your thing.
Is it for nothing in return? Because a support for the throne for a support for the throne.
No, it's true.
Is getting you a victory point.
It's true. Yeah.
What if you see a path to victory, but only if you get this one more point? This one you see it. You're like, oh, if I do this, if I can score this secret objective. This public, and they probably can't even see I can do that. If I make this 1-for-1 trade, support for the throne, support for the throne, then I can do it. And that's the only thing that you know that they'll take. They won't take anything else for it. So that
I would do that. And I was thinking of that before we started recording, of like the situations where like I'm okay with trading supports for supports, and it is that exactly. It's like I see my path. And I know I can get the jump on them. But then, of course, I don't know what they're planning.
Exactly. Is it good play at that point?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, what's your definition, Hunter?
Of kingmaking?
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk. I need to talk about something that Jada says here that kind of strikes to my core, that I kind of have a difficulty even. I don't know. Like where he says doing nothing still makes one person the winner. I don't agree, and I don't really see it that way either. I feel like, I don't know, it's maybe I go with what's his name, Topaz Dragon, when he says I would do whatever gives me the most points. I always stay in my lane playing for not only myself as a player, but like in the kind of role play level, I'm representing the Federation of Soul and their desires to be emperor.
I'll say this much. I think that is the honorable choice, despite also recognizing,
samurai,
but
okay?
despite also recognizing that like it actually has no value. We play with a player, Doug, who is very, very interested in getting second place. If he will openly say like, oh, if I'm not going to be able to win, but I'm going to push for second place. And I think there's a lot of groups where they just don't care. They could give a crap about second
winner
place.
take all.
Yeah, and so it's funny to me that you are winner take all, but also you are always trying, like in a situation where it is literally impossible for you to win, one of these two people will win, but you're saying you would still do whatever advances your position.
I think people get a little too cocky in the late game, though, and like they will see the situation as like, this is impossible, and they will be like, oh, well, so-and-so's going to win and there's no way around it. And like, I don't know, man, like I feel like I'm copping out too when I say it all this way, because it's like, and that's why I was like, I really wanted you guys to get a lot of points in before I made this point. Cause I just feel like Jada's question doesn't even like compute in my brain. Right. Cause I'm literally just like, no, I play.
You would do nothing.
I would do nothing. I'm not making any kings.
Yeah.
I'm king or nothing.
Yeah, my choice is if I could do something, I abstain.
Yeah,
right.
Like if I can't rightfully win, then
so what do you spend your last turn doing? I mean, we're talking like your last round is to just actually do nothing, or it is just working on your economic victories, trying to score a point despite everything else. What if you're scoring a point, you seeking out whatever goal you've set up does get in the way of one of the other people winning?
What we need is a situation. We need a specific sitch.
Yeah, I think it's, do as much as I can to prevent someone from winning in hopes that I can actually still win.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's ever a point where I resign myself to not winning.
Here's my scenario for you. The Stage 2 public objective, control one planet that is in another player's home system, is on the board. You haven't claimed it, Hunter. Mm-hmm. Alex and I are both sitting at 9 points or whatever, and we have clear paths to victory. You're at 6.
Oh God, I see what you're doing.
So you have a ship, you have a fleet adjacent to my home system. I am the one who is currently slated to win. Alex needs me to be overthrown to be able to score before me and win. You have a victory point that would, you have a thing that you can do and it would score you victory points, but it will not win you the game. It will win Alex the game. What do you do?
Okay, so again, I'm copping out, but this situation is only difficult because you're making it a hypothetical where we know all of the variables.
Agreed.
In a real game of Twilight Imperium, I would most certainly could take control of one of the planets in your home system and score those 2 victory points. I do not know what's going to happen with Alex.
Right. Someone else might take out Alex's home system.
Right. But in the hypothetical that you're setting up, the way that I'm thinking wouldn't even really compute. It doesn't
You
work.
would just break.
But I feel like that's maybe where when some of these conversations go, is because of all the certainty of the hypothetical, it makes it feel like there's no reason you should ever, it makes it seem unavoidable, but I know in the real life version of playing Twilight Imperium that I would not think that way.
Yeah. Alex, what about you? What, just kind of flip the names around, but you have the opportunity to take my home system and deny me the win and move yourself up, but Hunter will win. Hunter's Jolnar. There's a tech objective out there. He's going to get the point.
I already have the tech.
He's got the
I'm
tech.
number 1 in initiative order.
All that needs to happen is I need to not be able to score, and then Hunter would win instead. But you could score these 2 points and also not win. What do you do?
Yeah, I feel like I agree with Hunter. I would need to know everything else that's happened in the game.
Yeah.
My impulse is to say that more than likely, one of you has been friendly with me and the other one is not.
So you're going to take it on. This is where you go on the emotional value of it.
That is where I will support whoever has supported me.
So you would, even though it would earn you 2 victory points, if I was the nice guy to you all game, you would opt to not take planets in my home system because it would mean I would get a chance to take out Hunter.
If it's between you and Hunter has been particularly nasty to me all game, then I would not want him to win. Yeah, but I feel like I'm I don't know, like a reasonable person to play with. Like I don't get super emotional about things, but I don't know. It depends on who played a better game, honestly.
So there's the other thing.
Ooh,
so there's two arguments within this, right? There's the
who deserves it more.
You were nice to me, and then there's the who deserves it. So Hunter could have what if it's the scenario where like Hunter is a Sarl and he was at 4 points last round and he just got himself up to 9 points.
And I like conned to support for the throne with somebody and like did it in a really sloppy way. It was like a new player didn't even know what they were doing.
My point is it was mean, but it was like a beautiful play.
Oh, okay, so you're going the other way.
I'm going the other way. Yeah, it was a mean play, but it was beautiful. Do you reward Hunter and let him take that victory?
What's going to be the most fun for everyone at the table?
Yeah.
You know what? That's it.
That's good answer. I like that answer.
What sucks is I think there are some groups, this is going to sound weird, and I'll qualify it after the fact, but I think there are some groups that do not prioritize fun as much as we do. Mm-hmm. And all that is to say they prioritize the strategy element of it, right? The people who play once a week, like Blarknob and his group, they have fun, but the fun that they have is through the strategy. I can't imagine. I'd be curious, Blarknob, maybe you can give us some errata for next week. Tell me about your situations in your group. You guys play week after week after week. You've been doing this for like a decade. What are your thoughts on this situation? Because it's such an interesting thing to have players who the emotional side of it maybe has lost some of its value, right? If you play that often, it really has become broken down to a strategic game.
Yeah, they probably never bang their heads on the table and shake all the pieces.
Exactly.
You know? Can I say one more thing about it?
Yeah, get in there.
About the hypothetical scenario.
Yeah.
I feel like actually knowing how I play, if there's still the slightest possibility that I can win, even if it's going to take
He's coming back
turns.
Yeah.
So I feel like the only real answer is to do whatever I can to get in your way and gum up your works as much as possible.
Drink.
Just hoping that I can stop you from claiming that point, and somehow I can slingshot back around.
You know what I will say in this? This is where
I don't think it's over until
it's over. I agree. And I think this is where you can have this conflict with other players, because I think right now there are people that are listening to this and they are disagreeing with us, and they think that like these emotional victories are a huge part of the game for them, right? It's all about these relationships you've built up over the past however many hours. And so to that, I would say if I was at a table with like this whole group, we just described a scenario where there's 3 of us involved. Well, there's 3 other players at this table. I would be saying to the other players, I'm the one who can attack Hunter's home system. I'm right here. You other 3 players need to find a way to get into the other person that is about to win. Like it become, when 2 people are about to win, it is the only mission for everybody else to stop that.
Now that is common, and that is like that. I feel like that is something that comes up in our games a lot, of this situation where the table has now turned on the 2 potential victors.
And you know what? I'll say this too. This is kind of a new thing that just popped into my head, but the number of times we have had games determined at the end because of misplays and mistakes and misreading cards, misreading objectives. Those, we might have counted something out and think that someone has the victory, and then they reveal their thing and it's just straight up wrong.
Yeah.
So it is true that like there is always a chance that the game could go on one more round.
Yeah, like do you guys remember what Connor did? Hadn't been brought up in a minute.
I just needed to relive that for a second.
No, I think that is my real answer for me. It's not over until it's over.
Yeah,
I'm gonna fight as hard as I possibly can until someone reveals their card or claims the objective, and they're like, I'm at 10 points. I win.
Right. It's over. You could not build a hypothetical in this game that doesn't completely rule out my possibility. There's too much nuance. There's so many random things. Like, what about that action card that lets you steal somebody else's strategy card in the status phase? Like, or like there's just there's so many different swervings, so many random.
I do agree that there are certainly instances where you can look at it and you can know, but I do think that's the part of me that then says, well, you should play as if you don't.
Because you might not.
Because something could be wrong. Something, who knows what.
Because Connor might play a card he doesn't understand.
Yeah.
And then, you know what I mean? Like, anything could happen. It might even be misplay. That's what I'm saying.
So we're all starting to agree on this. What do we say to the player that is at our table? Again, we're at like a tournament or something. We're at just like a pickup game with people we don't know. And they're wanting to make they're wanting to king make. What becomes your argument to people who are trying to king make?
At a serious...
Well, let's not say tournament. I won't say tournament because that's a different... But
oh, no, I like saying tournament because
sure.
I think that's... You need the stakes to be high because, like, let's say somebody was going to king...
The stakes need to be that you're going to be crowned the king of Twilight Imperium.
Exactly. So those are the stakes.
Of all Twilight Imperium forever.
Right.
Or at least until next year.
Every single game is those stakes.
Right. So that's happening. Somebody's going to king make. And let's say they're going to give it to a person that you feel like didn't really deserve it as much as...
What if you disagree?
What happens then? Like,
does everyone... So this is... You are actually asking a very scary question. And it's what you said... It's relevant to what you said earlier, where when two people decide to trade supports for supports, you want to get that going too. It's like, okay, well, if they're doing it, we need to all do it because otherwise some of us are falling behind, right? And I agree with that mentality. If Alex and Connor trade supports for each other, Hunter and I are going to look at each other and probably be like, all right, let's do it. Fine. Get them off the table.
I would never, ever trade a support for the throne. For support for the throne
especially with Connor. Yeah.
I might do it, but not with Connor.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, buddy. I'm sorry.
I don't think he listens to the show. So what becomes when someone else is deciding I'm going to give this victory to EJ because I like the way EJ played and he was nice to me, and then
I
you
just
say
like him better. It's even pettier. It's just like he's just nice.
But and you think EJ was a jerk this whole game, and you want to make Alex the victory. Like, do we get into that? Does the game now become the race to king make, or what? Like, what do we do in this? Again, we're playing Calvin ball with the hypotheticals, but like, what? I don't know. What would you say if it's going there? If 2 or 3 players are saying we're going to start king making, what do you do?
Well, I would like to call out another drink because Matt said Calvin ball.
Yes.
And what do you do? Jeebus.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
Don't invite them back.
You, sir, are banned from Twilight Imperium for just not having the right tude, you know? I would hate to see this at a tournament, you know? I would hate to see somebody just because the problem is, here's what it is. If you put this in a tournament landscape, I can even go this far in being like, you're robbing us all of the champion we deserve.
No, yeah, totally.
Like, you're giving it to someone else, and you're deciding for all of us instead of letting the game decide who would. Oh man, I'm right on the edge of banning support for the throne from tournament play. Not that I have the authority to do it.
I don't think so.
No. That's actually I'm
on the edge.
Alex, did you have anything on that point?
I don't know. I mean, I just consider it bad play. Like I said earlier, pure kingmaking for me is when it is really a power play. It's to make you feel good about yourself.
And you know what? I'll say this much on that topic. I think for some people, myself included, depending on the subject, I think bad play versus bad etiquette, like we were talking about last week, that can become hard for some people to distinguish. I know I've been in tabletop simulator games where someone didn't like a play someone else made because they thought it was bad, but they treated it as if they had been morally wronged. And I think that definitely hurts the game when we mistake bad play for bad etiquette. And I'm saying that, again, to myself as someone who has also done this. Mm-hmm. When someone does something you don't like the way they did it, you don't know everything that's going on in their head. You don't know all the strategies they've got planning, so it's not your call to say it's all bad etiquette.
Yeah.
So pure kingmaking to me is when someone completely disregards the rules of the game and they disregard that winning has any value at all. So on the one hand, I do believe it is good. It's bad etiquette because it is. I think in most cases stealing a victory away from someone who deserves it. Right. But then also it's bad play because it's doing something that is not explicitly getting you victory points and launching you to the lead to win.
Right.
And the point of the game is to win.
Yeah, I actually really like the way that you phrase that, because I feel like if you decide to no longer play for the win, you are not playing the game anymore.
Right.
You are playing a new game.
The ladder works when everyone's trying to climb it, right?
Yeah.
The game works best when everyone is seeking victory. If from the beginning of the game only 2 people were seeking victory and the other 4 players were just like fuffing about, like of course that's a whole completely different game. Twilight Imperium works because 6 people sit down and 1 person leaves. Like that's just the only way the game works with all the nuance that we love it for. So I want to transition into this interesting point that was talked about on Board Game Geek by Dan Heck. And I just love this conversation that they got started. And I really kind of want to start with their conclusion and kind of work backwards a tiny bit. But the idea being that if you hate support for the throne, you actually hate Twilight Imperium, you just don't know it yet. Now, that's taking it maybe one step too far in kind of explaining your thoughts here, but I think the nugget is what I agree with, which is support for the throne as a resource that you can offer up to people and that you can have a transaction that revolves around and it is towards the goal of winning the game. That is Twilight Imperium. Everything you do in the game is weighing the cost-benefit analysis of this will put me towards a victory, but it might make me weak here, and it might give this person another advantage. That's what you're doing with everything. So support for the throne is a microcosm of the entire game. But where I and some other people kind of also disagreed with this is I think the argument we've been trying to make is there is a part where people start wheeling and dealing with support for the throne in a way that is not that.
Yes, and that is outside the realm of what Twilight Imperium is. I mean, I played a game a couple weeks ago. They weren't able to accomplish this goal because of a misunderstanding, but their goal was for someone to literally support for the throne Kingmake.
So, yeah.
Like to give their support for the throne.
In its rawest form, Kingmaking is when someone gives someone a support for the throne when they're at 9 points and they give them a victory point to win. Yeah, that's Kingmaking,
they give them the resources.
Other things could be misconstrued and pulled into the realm of Kingmaking, but if we're going to get like super exact with it, it is literally that. It is... You're at 9 points. Here is a victory point.
I don't think anyone would disagree with that definition. Yeah. That is Kingmaking in its rawest form, because literally there's nothing you could trade for a support for the throne in that context that makes any sense. Right.
And people want to make the argument of like, well, if they did it again, if it's this discussion of
a personal reward.
I feel like that's the part where there is no question about it being bad etiquette. It's one thing to say you could attack this player or you could not attack them, and that's going to make a king. But to either give someone a support for the throne or not give someone a support for the throne is not the same conversation at all.
I think the important distinction is giving someone a victory point or denying someone a victory point.
Yes. So kneecapping versus kingmaking.
Right. Yeah. So say you have a situation where if you deny someone the victory point they need to win, another player is likely going to win. I don't think that's kingmaking. Maybe someone else will step up and do something about the other player. You never know. You never know until it's over.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah. Last week we defined kneecapping as something that only happens in the early rounds, but I feel like I want a new term for what that's called at the end of the game when you're just trying to...
Just like denial, really. Just denying...
Yeah. Denying the victory.
I actually do think, though, that part of earning the right to the victory is overcoming the victory denial.
Right, exactly.
For sure.
It is a fact of honor that you get to wear with your victory.
Yeah, tried to stop me and make this other person win. You could even then spin it as like a little feather in your cap. We've made a lot of references to this post. It's a very good post by D-Heck. On Board Game Geek. I would encourage everyone to read it. We won't recap the entire thing, but I did want to say after like he or she does kind of spell out like a lot of what I would call good support for the throne play.
Yes.
Like when I first read it, because of my general like kind of uneasiness with support for the throne, especially with like how strong they come out for it, I was a little bit like, ooh, I'm like, I feel weird about this. But they do describe what I consider just good support for the throne play, and I would encourage anyone listening to this to go read it. The subject is called "Hot Take Support for the Throne is Great," and I don't think they're wrong. I think I do want to make the distinction that I think my problem with support for the throne is that it's highly exploitable. Is that what I want to say? Exploitable.
Here's what I know where you're coming, and this is what I want to say. The reason I wanted to do this episode is, well, first off, I wanted to have a soapbox, but I didn't even know what I was going to soapbox exactly about.
Right.
But the end result is support for the throne is something that should belong in the game. But players need to be aware from the onset of what it is they're supposed to be doing with it. Someone in this thread, Agent Drake, pointed out in this same thread, I suspect that this may be part of the reason why the first game rules explicitly exclude promissory notes. And I think that is a big factor. When you're teaching this game to new players, promissory notes and especially support for the throne are a dangerous tool that I don't think new players fully recognize the implications of it. And I feel like in teaching the game to new players, it is something worth holding back for games. And maybe, like you say, I don't think it's something that should be banned from tournament play, because I feel like at the tournament level, no, of course, but the point is to say at the tournament level, those players know how to wield support for the throne,
right? And
it's at those very, very low level first games, all the stories that we get, like we get a lot of This Imperium live submissions, and we get a lot that talk about people doing these crazy support for the throne plays, and it's always with the pretext of this was our first game we ever played, and people were just wheeling and dealing promissory notes like nobody's busy. Yeah, and it's crazy, and it's because people don't understand how powerful that's going to become later. So this is my soapbox to say, understand the power of support for the throne, and know before you start a conversation with somebody with it, know what your plan is for the end game, really. I mean, I don't think you need to be giving that thing out unless it like adheres to a specific plan of yours.
Can I ask you guys one question about promissory notes?
Yeah.
Have you guys ever put yourself in a really, really terrible spot with a ceasefire?
No, because so I almost refused to trade ceasefires for that exact reason. I think I've only traded a ceasefire in one game ever. I actually really, really hate giving out my ceasefire because I'm absolutely terrified of it completely screwing me over. Same thing with support for the thrones, honestly. I very rarely give out support for the thrones unless I see the way that I can make it not hurt me that bad.
Yeah, I've done some ceasefire trading. I've broken ceasefires because all it costs, I mean, really in the end, all it costs you is one activation.
Yeah.
And that, depending, I'm not taking that lightly, but it is a much smaller cost than one whole victory point, which is the entire goodie.
Right.
That is the whole point of the game.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever. I don't know. It's weird. Honestly, I love having this discussion, but we have kind of learned about ourselves, I feel like, in doing this show, that we tiptoe a little more with promissory notes.
Yes. Other players are much more open with them.
We are just like really. We always need a good deal.
Again, it comes down to, it's not even just that we need a good deal, but as players, we are afraid of relinquishing any sort of control and giving up promissory notes. It's the same reason I didn't like promissory notes in TI3. They were a part of a system I didn't like, but I also didn't like being held to a promise. I just didn't even like the idea of a promise that I had to keep.
God, did you guys hear him say that?
Yeah, I mean but
I just don't like being held to a promise.
But that is that in earnest, like to me, that is what Twilight Imperium was about.
Right?
Is like the point is that anything can be deceived, anything can be like this. The context changes with every action, and so I don't want a mechanical thing to hold me to some sort of deal because things might change down the road. I think they're much better implemented in TI4 and I love them, but I'm still very, very afraid of them and use them incredibly lightly.
Yeah. I think I get more ceasefires than I give out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's been
you
games
should always
where I've gotten
more
like
than you
3.
give.
Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, that sounded really cocky, but that is truly how I feel. That is who I am, I guess.
I use ceasefires as like a last ditch bargaining tool. which is like, you won't take any of my offers, so I will, like, if the only way I can stop someone from coming at my works is to give them my ceasefire, then I will do it.
Yeah, I don't think I have ever offered my ceasefire.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen you do it either.
No, I really hate the idea of it.
Yeah, I mean, you just keep your works not gummed, you know?
Yeah, I like them smooth. I like
everybody's trying to get their gum in your works. Like, everybody's
if I have to, I'll give it out and just try to play around it.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I can.
Yeah. I would give a ceasefire to somebody across the board, but it never comes up. It's kind of the thing. I'm just rarely in a position where I'm giving my ceasefire to someone I genuinely don't think it's going to impact my play. But like, too often there's like a planet with a trait that I just know I'm going to need, and it's going to end up in there. Like, I just don't want to even have that thrown in my face. I can't stand the idea of needing a specific planet later on, and they just so happen to control it, and there's no other way for me to get.
Well, you're a warmonger.
Yeah,
it seems
basically.
Like.
Yeah, Matt would always prefer war.
Yeah.
Over peace?
Yeah, always.
Well, I think that's about as tight a bow as we can put on this conversation. I think I like our definition of kingmaking just being kind of exclusively if it is only for the benefit
almost outside of play.
Right.
Like, it's like if it's outside of the kind of theme of the game, fiction of the game.
It is wrong to call anything else kingmaking because, like we described, so many different actions can result in so many different results. And so to say, like for you, Hunter, thinking inaction is not action, whereas some people would disagree with that. Like, that's where we're coming at this definition for kingmaking. Kingmaking is a very specific thing, and everything else is kind of more existing within the confines of just what late game Twilight Imperium looks like.
Right. I feel like a lot of the points I was making earlier, though, about that has more to do with your personal attitude towards it. Right. And it's like, I just try and stay clicked into winning and playing to win and playing for my race to win, even if all hope is lost. That sounds even more dramatic and fun to me. I mean, not just fun at all.
Because wouldn't your victory be so much better?
So much sweeter.
If you had to make a desperate move when all hope was lost?
Yeah. Right. Yes. I'm into that.
Yeah, I'm into that too.
Well, let's transition real quickly. There's not really very much errata we can do from last week because it's kind of all the same topic, honestly. This
whole
episode,
thing was a sort of response.
This is a two-parter, really. So I think, if anything, we will skip the errata this week. We've just already been bringing up a lot of people's points. So next week, if we have errata from this conversation, we might include some of the conversations that happened within last week. So you can consider next week's errata a compilation of these past two episodes. So let's before we do the rundown, normally we like to end on the play of the week, but that's going to be different this week because our play of the week this week comes from submitter Alex Lilburn,
some random listener.
And Alex, do you want to recite your story? And now I recognize, dear listeners, that this is we're playing a little bit
some inside baseball.
This is kind of some inside baseball, and I have to apologize, but this story is too on theme and too on topic to not go there. So it just seemed really important to get this one out now rather than later.
Yeah.
If anything, this is like a big reason why I wanted Alex on the show, because I know that this idea of kingmaking is fresh on his mind. Alex, you go ahead. Roll that beautiful bean footage.
It's the last round of a 2-day affair. We broke up in like round 6 because the game had stretched in well into the hours of the evening, and we came back a couple days later. I'm playing universities, and I'm tied at 8 points with the Embers of Muat, who has a firm hold on Mechatol Rex and has just picked Imperial. I have Shard of the Throne, giving me 1 victory point. Immediately, the council goes to session to figure out how we can stop Muat from winning. During all of this, I'm feigning innocence, for the other players don't know that I'm sure I'll win if Embers does not. One player in particular, the Hakan player, voices loudly to everyone at the table that he'd rather Muat win than me because of an earlier move I'd made, which involved me using Lightwave Deflector to steal a bee's Freya from underneath him, beginning a game-long grudge. Whoops. We decide on a plan of action. One player is to take Mechatol from the Embers, the other is to take the Embers home system. Everyone takes a turn before me, but Sar goes off and does some other thing. Hakan continues amassing their fleet in the face of galactic destruction. I think explicitly to send it at me in case Embers didn't win. And my neighbor, the Arbrek, in their cunning, seizes the opportunity to take my home system, and taking Shard of the Throne with it. My E-Res Siphons kicks in and gives me 4 trade goods. So then it gets to my turn. After chiding the other players for their inaction, I send my fleet to Mechatol. I completely decimate Mechatol with Duranium armored dreadnoughts, but I can't take the planet with my ground forces, as it always happens with Jolnar. So Embers still controls Mechatol, and they still have their home system. And so after sitting there for about 10 minutes, trying to figure out a way that they can do something with the fate of the galaxy on their shoulders, the Krius sends their fleet with their flagship through the gravity rift to get at Muat's home system. And it works. They take the home system, Muat retreats from Mechatol Rex and engages the Krius in their home system. They play Imperial, but they're only at 9 points. And on the secondary of Imperial, I just draw a secret on a whim. It's Unveil Flagship. My flagship's already on the board, right next to my home system. So I take the system back and immediately claim the point. Now I'm at 8 again, and to the table I'm the clear successor to the throne. But I'm in a bad spot. I can't spread myself too thin for the territory-based Stage 2 objectives. But the objective that was revealed this round was spend 10 trade goods. And I'm the universities. I have E-Res Siphons. All I have to do is get attacked. So that's what I do. I get attacked a total of 5 times, netting me 20 trade goods. I lose Shard of the Throne again, but it doesn't matter. All I have to do is hold onto my home system and wait it out. And the Hakan can't do anything about it. And then I made the biggest mistake I've ever made in a game of Twilight Imperium. I revealed my hand too early. Like a comic book villain, I sat back and laughed and told all of them that there was nothing that they could do to stop me. And it gets to the status phase. Clearly, victory is mine. Sar goes first and claims a secret, but they're still at 9 and they can't claim any public objectives. But the Hakan sees that they could claim 10 trade goods if they had 10 trade goods. So for absolutely nothing in return, except for my defeat, Hakan gives Sar 10 trade goods. And Sar wins.
It's brutal. Now, Alex, you read that whole story to us, and I have to tell you, that's not our play of the week. Our play of the week is something that I'm about to do right now.
Yeah, the play of the week is about to happen right now. Because sit down, and I hope that your chair has a seatbelt.
Per the rules reference, the only time that transactions can be done is during the action phase on a player's turn, and during the agenda phase. So you were in the status phase, which means that transaction was illegal. So your lawyers, Matt Martins and Hunter Donaldson here, would like to tell you, Alex, you won that game.
You won that game of Twilight Imperium, Alex. It's the only time we could ever possibly see being able to deliver this news to you. We sort of double-checked by proxy.
Yeah.
Someone had emailed Dane about this before, actually quite a while ago.
Right.
And he explicitly said that you may not
do transactions
during the status phase.
Only
the strategy phase.
During the action phase when you're adjacent.
Yes.
And during the agenda phase.
Correct.
Yes.
You do not have to be adjacent.
Correct.
And here's the thing with that game. That was my first game of TI4. I then bought TI4. And I read the rulebook. There were a lot of things we had wrong.
Yeah, I'm sure. Everybody does.
I was thinking about it. I may have been first in initiative order. We were playing that you claimed objectives clockwise from speaker.
Yeah, a lot of people make that mistake. That's a big one. If anything, that's another PSA from SCPT. Yeah. That's you initiative claim order. In initiative order. Nalu always claims objectives first, and then everyone else in initiative order before you give up your strategy cards. Big deal. Well, there you go. Even if you already knew it, you are vindicated, sir. we give you the victory.
They didn't.
Here's the other thing that I have to say.
No. I've got it right now. In this discussion on Kingmaking, for our final move, we make you king.
You're the king, Alex.
of that game.
Congratulations.
You are
Can I unmake my king?
Oh no!
Confess something.
Wait, what did you do?
Can I have a confession?
Yeah, do it,
Alex.
All right, so it's my first game of TI4, right? It was brutal. It was a lot. I was playing the universities. I, for some reason, misread my race sheet. And I was not paying a strategy token to cash and attack that entire game.
Oh my god,
Alex! We take your kingship away.
This is why Kingmaking is wrong. We tried to retroactively Kingmake it. It didn't even make sense.
I had way more resources than I should have.
Yeah, no kidding.
Wow. That
you
right
monster.
There, that was a little morality play.
It was a completely fumbled victory.
Wow. Well, that's going to do it for us. Let's do the rundown real quick. You can follow us on Twitter, SpaceCatsPod, our Gmail, our email. This is where we love to get plays of the week like the one you just heard, as well as This Imperium Life submissions, is spacecatspieceturtles@gmail.com. You can join in our discussions every single week on the Twilight Imperium subreddit or on our Board Game Geek Guild. I don't know if this helps. I'm going to read this off because I never usually get to. Our Board Game Geek Guild is boardgamegeek.com/guild/3103. I guess we are the 3103rd guild on BGG.
They sent us a little thing.
No, it's whatever. That's our thing. So you can join discussions there as well. We want to give a special shout out to some of our patrons. First and foremost, Chief Ulfsark from our Patreon, Randy Ward, and awkwardly enough today we have to thank Alex C.M. Lilburn.
Thanks, Alex.
You put us in an awkward position being our friend and also donating to our Patreon, so we'll deal with that later, I guess.
Huh.
But
It's for
you
that
can
$10
on behalf of all of our patrons, we're letting you accept this award of thanks.
Yeah.
So
also, we have a Patreon.
We have a Patreon, and you should please help us out with that.
Yeah, check it out. We out here.
We're trying to go to Gen Con this year, and we want to make a really great tournament video. So patreon.com/spacecatspieceturtles.
Yeah, what else do we do here?
We have a Discord. You can find it there's links in the BGG and the Reddit threads. The Discord's really, really fun. Alex, you're a part of it. Is it fun? Is it fun to be in the Discord and talk about Twilight Imperium all the time?
It's fun. There's been a new development in memes. That's been pretty exciting.
Yeah, we got great memes, guys.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
Our meme game is, their meme game.
A couple of them have bled into like the subreddit and stuff, but I feel like our Discord is the only like choice place for like good Twilight Imperium memes, because everywhere else they kind of get shunned away from. But we have a special section for you to just throw them at us, and we love it. It's great. So come join our Discord.
Also, people on the Discord have been randomly thanking me and blowing up my phone, and I don't really know why it's happening, but I do want you all to know it will never be enough.
One quick thing we forgot to add while recording this, we are playing a game this Saturday, April 7th at 4:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we will be live streaming it on our YouTube channel, Space Cats Peace Turtles, and we would love it if you joined us. Not only that, we are letting all of anybody who wants to vote for the races that we're going to play. So starting yesterday and going until the stream starts, we've got a straw poll running. We'll have that up on Reddit, on the BGG, on our Twitter, everywhere. We're trying to throw it out everywhere we possibly can. So please vote on what factions you want to see included in this game, and please join us on Saturday for this game. We want to get lots of people in there. We're going to try to make it as interactive as possible. We want to do as much. We're sick of seeing and doing Twilight Imperium streams where it's just 6 people looking at a table for 8 hours. We want to do more, so come join us and throw ideas at us, and we're going to just throw spaghetti at the wall and at you guys and see what lands and try to make it as fun as possible. We want to show the world what Twilight Imperium is made of, and these live streams are really where we get that going. So come join us on our YouTube. Again, that's 4:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Saturday, April 7th.
Can I just give a shout out to a couple of memes that I liked? Obi-Wan Kenobi saying, Winnu. Now there's a race I haven't seen picked in a long time.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us, Alex.
This has been a special...
So,
yeah, what?
Am I the king or am I not the king?
You're not the king. You are not the king.
We made you king, and it was bad that we did it, which is a little
French
morality
Revolution
play.
happened, and you are not the king.
Yeah, you were a bad king to pick, and that's what happens when you king make in the first place.
It's too much responsibility anyway.
Yeah, who wants to be king?
Thank you for listening to Space Cat's Peace Turtles. And thanks to Ben Prunty for the use of his music. You can find more at benpruntymusic.com and benprunty.bandcamp.com. Pax Magnifica, Bellum Gloriosum.